It's time to lose the political drama and lay some facts on you. It is likely, highly likely, the world will not end now that some of the NSA surveillance powers have been put on hold. The White House's own review group found the NSA's counterterrorism program was, quote, not essential. A former counterterrorism official who served on that review panel said, quote, there's no way that you can claim that there's a single terrorist act that was prevented because of the telephone metadata collection program. End quote. So why the panic? With me now, Republican Senator Mike Lee. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me. Senator, the NSA shut down its bulk data collection program at 7:44 last night. The White House says this is an irresponsible lapse. Should we be scared?
Well, we certainly should not have allowed these Patriot Act provisions to expire. We have legislation that I've introduced in the Senate along with my co-sponsor, Pat Leahy from Vermont, legislation that passed the House with a bipartisan supermajority of 338 votes to 88 votes just a couple of weeks ago. I tried to put that on the floor of the Senate just a few days before we recessed. We still would have had time at that point to bring it up, to get it passed, and to get it signed into law before we took the Memorial Day recess. But that didn't work. Enough of my colleagues disagreed that we weren't able to move in that direction. It's important now for us to get this legislation passed into law. And this legislation ends bulk data collection, which is what so many Americans are concerned about with their privacy. But it allows these Patriot Act provisions to continue protecting the American people.
But still, again, I ask you, is it an irresponsible lapse? Are we in danger because these programs have been put on temporary hold?
Well, I certainly think it's an irresponsible lapse. We should not have allowed them to expire. We've known for 4 years this day was coming. We've known for months that it was going to be very difficult this time around, and we could have and should have avoided it. Now, whether or not this is going to result in some act of terror, I don't know. Only time can tell with that. I would be surprised if it did, but we shouldn't be taking the risk. So with each passing hour, I think we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we got into this position? Why is it that the Senate has become so accustomed to legislating by cliff, by deadline, instead of doing things in the regular order to make sure they're done in time?
Well, sadly, I think the American people have grown used to that. And before we get into the nitty-gritty, Senator Rand Paul has been accused of using the NSA to further his presidential ambitions. Is that fair?
Well, look, Senator Rand Paul is a friend of mine. He's someone that I deeply respect and admire. We come to a different conclusion in this case as to what the best solution is. But I will say this, he's been consistent on it. He's been very consistent since the day he got to the United States Senate in asking for these reforms. And so these same things that are causing him to take a stand here are things that have propelled him long before he was ever a presidential candidate.
So he's not posturing in your mind?
No, I don't think this is mere posturing on the part of Senator Paul. Senator Paul deeply believes in these things, and although he takes a different approach here than I do, it's an approach that I understand and an approach that I respect.
Okay, so let's get back to the bill. The House has this compromise bill in place, and now it goes to the Senate. Included in that bill, it requires the NSA to obtain targeted warrants if it wants to collect these call records. It also requires the government to obtain call records from phone companies instead of doing it itself. Do these things protect my rights to privacy?
Yes, they do. And, you know, I talk about these programs at length. I devote an entire chapter of my new book, Our Lost Constitution, to this very program. The problem with the bulk data collection program under Section 215 of the Patriot Act is that it involves the NSA going out to all the phone companies in America saying, send us all your records, all of them. We want detailed records on every call that was ever made. Now, not the content of the call, of course, but just the records around who called whom, when the call occurred, and how long the call lasted. Instead of tying the investigation to a particular number that's believed to be involved in some type of terror ring. That's really the way it ought to work. It would be more effective that way, and it would also be more respectful of the privacy rights, the Fourth Amendment interests of the American people, if we did it the way contemplated under the USA Freedom Act.
And a final question for you, sir. Is this a win for whistleblower Edward Snowden?
Look, I'm reluctant to attribute anything as a win to someone who violates U.S. law and discloses national security sensitive information. I don't think this is necessarily a win for anyone, because I don't think we should have allowed these provisions to expire. I think we should have instead reformed them. That is what ought to happen. It's what would have happened if we were addressing this legislation in the sequence and at the proper timing.
But sir, had Edward Snowden never communicated in the way he did with the American people, would anything have been done about the NSA surveillance program?
Well, I don't know, and I don't know that we will ever know that. It may be that some of that information would have been declassified by now. That's impossible for us to tell. But we are where we are. This stuff has been declassified. The American people are understandably concerned. A lot of us were understandably concerned a few years ago when we found out about it, but we weren't able to talk about the specifics of why, because it was still classified. Now that it's been declassified, it makes it a lot easier for us to talk about it, and that explains why we've been able to get to this point where we've got legislation that could pass and that I think in the next 48 hours will pass that will finally end this program.
All right. Senator Mike Lee, I appreciate it as always. Thank you so much.